Hello and welcome to episode 81 of Friends of the Show. I am Stephen W. Skinner, and this is my podcast where I chat with the funniest people on Twitter. This week's friend is one of the all-time funniest Twitter joke writers ever, a huge inspiration for me starting out on Twitter, and a producer on Family Guy, Internet SNL, co-writer on the Oscars, and those are just a few of the cool things that we discuss. I am, of course, talking about at The Sulk, Alec Sulkin, breaker of swift mustache hairs and a delight. This was such a fun chat, I was admittedly nervous, but Alec is so very cool and incredibly nice, and so great to talk to, so I hope you'll enjoy Friends of the Show, episode 81, with At The Sulk. Oh, there he is.
Hey.
Hey, man, how's it going?
Good. Sorry I'm late.
Oh, that's okay. I was just drafting by like, hey, did you remember?
Yeah, no, I totally remembered, and like I would say I get like a phone call from Seth MacFarlane like once every 2 weeks, and he just called like 7 minutes ago, and so it's always like,
Oh yeah, no, that's a definitely take that call. Great.
So am I not going to be able to see you? Is this just an audio?
I usually just do audio. I can put my camera on if you want to get a good look at me.
No,
but
hey, that's fine.
Or you can go off, yeah.
Let me put my screen down because, well, actually, you know what? I guess I'm just so used to talking and looking at myself. Let's just do that.
Oh, sure. Yeah, you have the classic look that I predicted how you'd look. That salt and pepper, gray hair, beard. Love it.
Yeah, I can't change that. Well, if I did the Just for Men, I guess I could.
I wonder if you can do the brushing where it gradually changes.
I just never buy it. Every time, I feel like that's one of my superpowers is like seeing people that have colored their hair or spotting like hair pieces or plugs.
It's a great talent to have, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, tonight we got him. The Sulk. That was your intro.
I love it.
So yeah.
You know I love that intro. That's the classic Kilborn.
Classic Kilborn, and I just listened to your podcast where you talk about that.
So I should feel insulted now because you said we got him.
Yeah, that's the big insult, but it's funny because it's just the reference,
Very
right?
Funny. I love that.
But Craig Kilborn, one of my, I didn't realize that you were in on that show. You were a writer on that show, right at the time when I would sometimes watch it. My grandparents had a trailer which had satellite. And they got E back in the day when that was new and exciting.
Yeah.
And that's how we got it up here. And it was like the first show where I was like laughing out loud. And I was like, this is something different where I'm not like laughing at shows out loud.
E was crazy. I just saw something the other day, something from the 90s that had like a little brief cameo by AJ Benza. And I just remember that's a name like they say in Star Wars, I've not heard in a long time.
Yeah.
He was like a sort of reporter on E! News, and he would always have like his little Hollywood beat. And I don't know, he just disappeared like a lot of things on E!
Yeah, that E! is a flash in the pan. I guess it like morphed into different things over the years as different channels do. Yeah,
Family Guy offices were. I mean, I think E! exists still.
Yeah.
But their offices are right next door to Family Guy offices.
I remember, they're still around. They do like a lot of red carpet coverage and that kind of stuff.
Right.
I remember they had that
exclusively.
I remember they had that shoe cam where you put your foot in this little box and it's like a red carpet for your shoe. And I was
Never saw that.
Oh, that's neat. Yeah, they're innovating on the red carpet. Those E guys are still doing it.
Right. They know that there are things yet to be discovered about red carpet technology, and they're all in on the pursuit of those things.
They are. I mean, well, we've got I think some of the stuff is here to stay where like you step up onto a podium and there's like a 360 camera that gives you like a Matrix bullet time thing as like the person spins in their Galliano and you're like, oh shit.
Well, I don't know. That might be out now that we can't look at or talk about each other's bodies.
So that's true. Yeah. Gone. Get out of here, bullet time cameras. Take your technology elsewhere.
Yep.
Speaking of bullet time cameras, new Matrix trailer just dropped to date this podcast episode. So if anyone's nostalgic for that, that's very exciting. We're going back to the Matrix.
what a great trailer. And I have to say, the idea of a Matrix, sequel, a third sequel, I guess, was not appealing to me, and I thought it was just going to be some sad, and it might still suck. Who knows? I mean, certainly the last couple of May try were not that great,
The matrices
but
preceding.
the trailer was fucking fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And the minute I finished watching the trailer, I was like, when does this movie come out? I have to see this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it really hits a lot of notes. Whatever, like they recreated a lot of shots and a lot of themes and vibes.
Yeah, I hope one day, or maybe on a sort of behind the scenes package, we'll get like a 15-minute documentary about why Lawrence Fishburne said no.
Yes, yeah, that would be very interesting.
Yeah, because I'm sure it'll probably feature some agent somewhere who fucked it all up.
Yes, definitely. Being a person in the biz, yes, that's exactly your kind of insight. You're like, how would you not come back to like one of your most successful Money in the Bank franchises?
Maybe he's just very old. It's possible that he's like really old and he could be like incredibly heavy.
Oh yeah, it could be. Yeah,
just a guess.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be a tough row to hoe, and maybe the studio didn't want that.
I wonder if that sort of changed how they got that new actor Yaha in there for like a younger looking version.
That guy looks like a badass.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. Looking forward to seeing that.
Me too.
All right, and we should also date this by mentioning it's big football opening Sunday. Mac Jones making his debut for your squad. How do you feel about that?
Well, listen, I'm optimistic, but one of the curses of being a Pats fan, one of the very few curses, is that we, better than any fan base in this country, understand how many things need to go right in order to win the Super Bowl.
Right.
Like we've seen it now many times where the number of things that have to work correctly is like 98 out of 100 at least.
Yeah.
So Mac Jones is an unknown at this point. I'm excited. I hope he's good. Again, following Brady, because the Cam Newton thing just seems like a blip now. In retrospect. Like following Brady is like the next franchise quarterback of the Pats it's a thankless task. And I would be shocked if we had anything near the same kind of success, but I'm ready to be shocked. I believe in Belichick. I think he's the greatest coach of all time. And I think if Belichick feels like this is the best way for our team to win each week, then I got to just ride with that until I'm disappointed.
That's right. Yeah, you go with history, you go with the coach until you're proven wrong.
I know. I mean, of course, I think it was a mistake to get rid of Brady, but I don't even know that the Pats do what Tampa did. Like they don't have the same weapons. Tampa's got a bunch of good receivers, and the Pats really still are struggling in that department. Mm-hmm. So I hope we win. Miami is always a tough team for us, even when they kind of stink, and they're getting better.
I love that the Dolphins can stink and still beat whoever.
I know they're very weird that way. We always have. The only thing that makes me a little bit more optimistic is I feel like, obviously there are division rivals and we play them twice a year, and we usually beat them the first time, even if it's at home or on the road. Like we're more prepared.
Yes, right.
We're like ready to go. And then we end up playing them in this game right near the end of the season every year where everything goes off the rails. Like there's always something strange about that game. Mm-hmm. So I hope that, we go in later this afternoon with a game plan that we implement, and we're, holding, sustaining our blocks and all that bullshit.
Yeah. You want to be the coach. You want to see happy Coach Belichick that everyone's executing, the main thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I just want to see happy Coach Belichick.
Just love to see happy Coach Belichick. Yeah. And the other sports that are going on, big pennant race heating up with our Blue Jays here from Canada, from Toronto, and obviously the Boston Sox.
Well, you guys certainly have gotten the better of us this season. The Sox are done. I don't know if you heard, Chris Sale has COVID now.
Oh, so I did not hear that.
Yeah, it's like he came back and looked electric, like he
Yeah.
never missed a day, and I was
Oh,
like, "Oh, this is great." And
that's
then
huge.
today it was like, "Sorry, he's got COVID."
Yeah, sorry, listeners. Elephant in the room, the global pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, which we are still in. What month is it? Month 8, 15, 17,
16? No, no,
16?
no.
Well,
7,
what are we saying from March 2020?
18, 18.
We saying from March?
Yeah, this is month 18, I'd say.
Yeah, 18. Oof. Year and a half. Solid year and a half. So we're used to it.
Yeah.
But if you're listening in the far future, hopefully this was just a blip, right?
Yeah, I like that outlook.
Yeah, you got to stay positive. Although I think the stat I saw today was that the U.S. has passed the Civil War death total. So now it's the second biggest killer after the other big plague in 1918.
Unbelievable.
Taking the second spot and still
Yeah.
going.
I know. We're doing everything we can to keep that going.
Yeah, well, it's like 60% of the people are really trying to stop it, and 40% are really trying to keep it going. So it's been a battle.
It's pretty pathetic. Pretty pathetic.
Yeah, that sucks. So if you're listening in the far future, hopefully you don't even know what we're talking about.
That's right. Are you planning on like burying these shows?
Yeah, these are all going into a time capsule, and they're going to the moon actually on the next moon mission. SpaceX, because they're lowering the cost of the rockets every single time. You see that shit? They're fucking landing rockets.
Yeah. You can go in a balloon now to space for like $100,000.
You can go in a balloon and jump off back down to Earth. People have been doing that since 2012 when that guy did that or something. Oh yeah, good stuff. So I think we've covered all the major the issues of the day, maybe some of the issues of the day. So now we can get into the I call this the Mark Maron part, but you are now one of the second guests who's been on the pod, who's actually been on Mark Maron, who's been on WTF the pod. So I guess we can skip that part. I don't know. Who are you from? Where are you from? Who are your guys?
You can ask me whatever you want. The Mark Maron thing was so long ago, and clearly as a favor to, I was dating at the time Sarah Silverman, who's good friends with him, and I think as a favor to her, he put me on that podcast. And back then, nobody knew or gave a shit about a podcast. This is 2010. Like, I just thought I was in, I knew who Mark Maron was, and I thought he was really funny, and I felt honored that he would interview me, but I had no idea like the reach that podcast, I mean, it kind of had it already then, but I just didn't know about it.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh, remember that podcast you were on? Well, Obama was on it. I was like, are you fucking kidding?
Yeah, I think that's when a lot of people were like, are you fucking kidding?
Yeah.
What? A phone radio? Phone radio show? And who was on it?
I was very behind the times on the podcast thing.
But now you're all caught up. In fact, you are yourself a podcaster, which is very exciting. Welcome to the game, the Sulk.
Yeah, thank you. I have to say, and I hope you have the same experience. So far, like we've got a few banked already. Like
you gotta bank them.
I know, and they're so fun. Like I'm having
Yes.
so much fun doing it. So I can't, as mockable as I think it is for someone like me to have a podcast. I am legitimately enjoying it.
Yeah, it's great. I've listened to a few episodes, and it's very good. And it's not just like Goldie and the Silk shooting the shit of the day. It's like you're talking about specific stuff that provides value to people who are looking for that information. It's like you guys are, experts in your field.
It's so funny. Yeah, I know, because I've talked to a few people, and they've put it like that, and like basically all we want to do is shoot the shit. And like then when we get to the when we're talking about the show beforehand, we're like. And then we'll just do that bullshit about the the screen part or the part,
and you just have to answer a couple questions. You'll talk about some industry specific reference that you have that applies to the situation, and it's great. Yeah. Like that's all you need, just that one little nugget, and the rest can be fun and entertaining. Like that's why people listen. But having both, like having the value that people are like, oh, I want to know how to write a spec script, or what would be a good spec script, or whatever other points you covered in the spec script episode. I should have listened to the how to interview episode right before this one.
Not this kind of interview, though.
Right,
No,
right.
this-
Yeah, job interviews.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna get some writers hired, and you're gonna get some lovely letters. And you're gonna be like, oh, from the podcast. I forgot about that we did that podcast. Right. Thank you.
I know. Curse ourselves.
Yeah, that's great. So your podcast, we should mention that it's called. Hold on.
Typical disgusting display.
Oh,
See, I'm
that's
okay.
great.
I can play the sound. I'm not worried.
How now? Did you knew because it was because we talked about it, or
Yeah,
did
you guys
know
talked about that
Yeah.
that sound clip, and how you didn't get it cleared or whatever, and you just have Goldie doing it, and it sounds exactly the same.
I know. God, I love that clip. Thanks for playing it. Yeah, it's called A Typical Disgusting Display, and that guy you just played was legendary Boston Celtics announcer Johnny Most, who died many years ago, but he was it was a game against the Detroit Pistons, who the Celtics hated. Everyone hated them. They were the bad boys of the NBA, and Johnny Most in particular could not stand them. And so that was from one of the games against the Pistons, where he was yelling at the Pistons, calling this a typical disgusting display.
Yeah.
And that quote has always stuck with us. We love it.
Yeah, so it's great. A lot of great inside jokes between you guys on the show, which makes it really fun. Everyone can go listen to that. Link in the show notes.
Nice. Thank you.
Nice. All right. So, yeah, where did you come from? Where did you go? Questions normally reserved for Cotton Eye Joe. These are questions now I'm asking you. So you're from Massachusetts?
I am. I'm from a town called Weston, Massachusetts. It's right outside Boston. Yeah, so I grew up obviously a fan of all the sports teams here, and with that sort of Boston kind of, it's not quite an edge. It's like a sarcasm, self-defeating kind of sarcasm that a lot of people from this gray area of the country have.
It's definitely a mood. Is it a mood or is it a vibe?
Well, I think today it would be a vibe.
Right.
But it's also a mood. I think it can be both. I'm going to allow it to be both.
Right, yeah. And so, yeah, so you came out of there. You don't have too much of a hard Boston accent, I guess, being slightly removed, maybe, or did you take in certain media that softened your accent?
Well, it's funny. I don't have much of an accent. I think it probably, as hoity-toity as this sounds, like had to do with going to private school when I was very young. And so, not because the schools were somehow better and they taught you better, but I was just surrounded by a lot of kids from different places. Like
Yes.
there were kids from all over the country and the world at these schools that I went to from a very young age. And so then I think you kind of talk like your friends talk sometimes. And I
definitely.
think that it's like all airline pilots talk like Chuck Yeager. That's what they all sound like they're all imitating basically Chuck Yeager.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I just sound like a Northeastern student somehow.
Some sort of an amalgam of the different random.
Yeah, because I saw a video and I can like imitate a Boston accent at the drop of a dime. I love doing that.
Yeah.
But I saw a video of myself as like a 4 or 5 year old. My dad had these old reel to reel videos, and I was singing that song Jimmy Crack Corn.
Yeah.
And I was literally, and it was, of course it was warbly and old and everything,
Yeah.
but my voice was like Jimmy Crack Corn and I don't care. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh my God.
You had
I
it.
have like a thick Boston accent. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's really interesting that, yeah, during your developmental years, you were exposed to these myriad of accents, resulting in your sort of combination non-accent. And then when you were a kid, you were surrounded and you could park the car in Harvard. Yeah.
Exactly. My dad has a Boston accent. My mom has a little bit of a Boston accent, less than my dad, but it's like it kind of shrinks through the generations. So the people that still have it really runs strong in their family because they should have been able to weed that shit out by now.
Yeah. So when you go home, when you're speaking to your dad, you can slip into it probably a little bit more. Probably like lean into it when you go home, right?
Yeah, well, I do find myself doing it a lot more when I'm back here, and not like by accident. Like I'll do it just to make fun of somebody.
You're right. Someone from high school.
Yeah.
I guess they wouldn't have gone to your high school. All right, well, let's get into your entry into the biz. That's what everyone wants to hear about. See, look at, oh my goodness. I'm doing the Mark Maron, scrolling through your IMDb, and look at all of these sweet notes. SNL? That's a big,
Yeah,
that's a
well,
cool
I can't
freaking
believe that I'm credited at SNL. I never
foot in the
wrote
door.
there. I got an internship when I was a senior in college at Saturday Night Live. That when I graduated, it became the writer's assistant. So I was there for a couple of years.
A couple of awesome years of my SNL experience. Not much of an SNL watcher anymore, but during that time when I was 14, yeah, it was pretty much a large part of my life.
Oh, totally. You never missed it.
Never missed it. Yeah.
I watched it every week. I mean, I would record it or DVR it. Except until the last couple of years, I've sort of fallen off. But I really watched for so much of my life. Like I loved watching that show. And the difference between, people love to say, oh, that was a shitty episode or that was a great episode. And the difference between a great and a shitty episode is one sketch.
Exactly.
It's always like, if you can have two funny sketches in a show, it's a great show. If you have one funny sketch in a show, it's a terrible show.
Yeah.
That's just always the way it's been.
Yeah. And if the host pops, like if it's a good host, you're just like, okay, this is going to be good no matter what. Even if it's a crappy episode, it's going to be good, whatever.
Totally.
Yeah, so that's very cool. So any good SNL stories? You were around when who was in the cast at that time, like?
Yeah, so I was there at a strange time. It was like when I began there, it was the tail end of like the Chris Farley, David Spade era.
Yeah.
Adam Sandler. And then when I was there as a writer's assistant, they did the changeover to like Will Ferrell and Sherry O'Terry and
that was a real changing of the guard moment. Like it happens a few times, but that was a big one where it's like, okay, these old ones out, these new amazing ones are stepping up to be the best person in.
And people forget that at first, like everyone hated it. Like people hated the new SNL cast. Like after their beloved favorites had left, and then they got this whole new cast. And of course, like when Will Ferrell first started on SNL, I mean, he was hysterical, but he wasn't Will Ferrell. Like nobody knew who he was.
Yeah.
So nobody was like, oh my God, it's Will Ferrell. Like, of course it's hilarious, like they would be today.
Yeah.
It was more like, I don't know who these people are, and I'm uncomfortable if Adam Sandler isn't here.
Yeah, I'd be more like I'm not comfortable with change.
Right.
That doesn't matter who it was.
Change.
Yeah, when Will Ferrell came on, was it the get off the roof or get off of the shed?
The shed. Oh my God.
Get off the shed.
It's funny because they come and they audition before they get on, and you can actually see it online. You can, if you go to YouTube and look for Will Ferrell's SNL audition, he does that get off the shed in his audition, and it was like just instantly
so good,
so hilarious.
Yeah, imagine having something like that just ready to go for your SNL audition. Just
my God, Daryl Hammond. His impersonations are
amazing. Yeah,
unbelievably great. And his audition tape was also insane. I mean, he did a guy who a lot of people probably don't remember anymore, Phil Donahue, who's a talk show host. And he was sort of like the male Oprah before Oprah.
Yep. Yeah. And, you would run around like a maniac, hand you the mic or whatever.
And Daryl Hammond's Phil Donahue was like, it's one of the greatest. It belongs on the Mount Rushmore of impersonations. If Phil Donahue were like, eternal, Daryl Hammond would never stop doing that impersonation.
Wow. Yeah, pretty amazing when you consider that. So that's how it began for you, and then you skipped and hopped over to Late Late Show?
Yeah, so it was I was working at Saturday Night Live. I went over to The Late Late Show with Craig Kilborn in 1999, and that's when it started. And I was one of the few. There were only like 7 or 8 of us writers there, maybe. But that was so fun, and Craig was such a fun guy to work for, and he's still like, I'm sure you've probably seen him on Instagram. I find him hilarious there.
Yeah, he was. I think he did. He was very. I was just thinking about it today because I made this connection. I was like, how instrumental was he in like developing my sense of humor? Like, because when I discovered that and I realized that it was making me laugh out loud, that I would like seek it out. I wouldn't miss it. I would like be up at the trailer and have to watch it.
Yeah.
So you're watching something else. Well, I need the satellite TV to watch E.
Right. Yeah. He was such a fun guy to work for, and we were both big basketball fans. So, like, we just got along famously from the beginning. And I was there for 3 years. Really enjoyed all of them, and then just decided that, for financial reasons, it's like we wanted to get into sitcoms, and so we left Kilborn. And we went on to this show that was just briefly on Fox called The Pits.
The Pits.
And we were there just briefly. And my writing partner, Wellesley Wild, and I were there for, it only lasted for like half a season.
Mm-hmm.
But the staff on that show was great. Like the writing staff, there were a lot of guys from The Simpsons, and it was a really fun room. And one of the people on the staff was Seth MacFarlane. So that was when Family Guy had been canceled, and he still had a deal with Fox. So Fox just like put him to work on another show. And I met him there. We became friends. And then one day he said, I think they might actually bring Family Guy back. Would you want to work on it? And at that point, I had never seen Family Guy. It had been on for like 3 seasons, and I had never watched it because I love The Simpsons. I was just a Simpsons purist, and I didn't, I didn't really want to go and into the mud with Family Guy.
Yeah, the other primetime animation.
Said, like, I want to hire you on the show. I was like, of course, my favorite show. And I, watched the DVDs, and it is very funny. So, and then I've been there basically ever since, with a couple of different little interruptions along the way.
Crazy. So you weren't even in the original incarnation of Family Guy.
I was not. Even though I've been there basically for 17 years, I'm still one of the newbies. There's some guys who have been there since day one.
Right.
I didn't come in until season 4.
Season 4. That's when I think it really started getting good.
Well, that's what I say. I say it jokingly, but I also kind of mean it. I think it was. And also that's not to say anything against the people that were there beforehand. Like, they did a great job. But like, I do honestly think that in season 4, when it came back to such like a royal welcome, where it was like, we're sorry, we canceled you. And now come back and you can be here forever.
Yeah.
And I think everybody kind of had that confidence going into season 4 and 5. Like, if you can to come back. And
you can come back from the dead. That's kind of like only very few. In the modern age, it happens a little bit more. But if it does happen, you're just like, oh, geez, it's like a.
I know, and it's never really happened to the point where it comes back.
No,
for like a further.
Not where it comes back and it's still back.
Yeah.
Which is very cool. Congratulations on that. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Amazing, success.
God, I feel lucky.
And not only did it get good with the writing, it got good with some voice acting. Some voice acting in the backgrounds. You might recognize voice and voice. You're credited as voice a lot, in brackets voice.
Voice number 2.
You were additional voices.
Number 3.
In brackets voice.
Yep. I get a lot of the characters I do have numbers after their name.
Right. Yeah, you love to be the voice of voice, which is cool. And Confederate soldier number 2, Union soldier number 3.
See?
Their numbers, there's the numbers. There was a huge I clicked on it, and like the list is hilarious. When you click on it, and it just lists all of the different names, like, it starts with Jesus Christ, and then it has like voice or Aaron. I think you also played Steve, which is one of the most challenging voices to do. So
always
tip of the hat to you on that one. Very cool.
A lot of nuance.
So that's pretty neat that your like voice is peppered in throughout the show, and
It is.
it's like I'm interviewing a Family Guy character
Well,
because it's
it's
like
funny,
your
Seth,
voice.
right. Well, this is the voice I use for Jesus, so I
Oof.
forgive you, bless you. Um, but Seth, luckily for a lot of the writers, myself included, Seth always had this idea that the writers are actually best suited to deliver a lot of the jokes on Family Guy because they're the ones, when we pitch them in the room, you pitch them kind of almost in character
Yeah.
somehow. You're trying to inhabit that character that you're pitching, and so Seth feels like the writers often have the exact correct timing to deliver the jokes that he picks.
Right. Yeah, and that makes sense because that's how he that's why he picked it.
Hey, I'm not going to argue with him.
And that's pretty cool. I haven't talked to too many people about the writer's room atmosphere. So what's the atmosphere like currently? I'll just say currently is it all online now? You do sort of like this?
Oh yeah. So we've been on Zoom now for a year and a half, and it's actually been great. If anything, we're more efficient.
Yeah.
There's not as much kind of like chit chat or getting up to get snacks or take phone calls or whatever.
Sure.
So everyone's kind of hyper focused on that little box in front of them on the screen. And they still have the same brains. It's sometimes you encounter that thing that happens on Zoom where people are talking over each other and you have to go back and try and recreate whatever pitch you were trying to listen to. But that's not that often. So it's basically been working great the whole time. We didn't really miss a beat, which was crazy. And given the way the world kind of shut down, we were able to just keep going. Of course.
Yeah, that's really
being
lucky.
animated helps with that.
Being animated definitely will help. You didn't have to deal with protocols on set.
No.
And stuff.
People can just record their voices from their closets, which a lot of people have been doing. Seth Green and Mila, and people are just Alex Borstein just setting up a little studio in their closets.
Yeah, they probably got nice enough closets.
Yeah, they got walk-ins. They're pretty nice.
Yeah, that's all you need. I am in a basement, but I would love to upgrade to a closet.
Sure. Well, you can dare to dream.
Yeah, well, I think that add slowly. I think you were saying you were talking about doing a podcast for years before you actually started, right? Like that's how it goes. I wanted to do a podcast like for 2 years before I started mine. It just takes that much time of thinking about it and procrastinating till you eventually buy the microphones and then
right. Yeah, you build it up in your mind like it's going to be some mountain to climb to do it, and then you're just like, oh, I just need a microphone and just hit record. Okay.
You just have to record it, and then you just have to upload it.
Yeah,
that's the hard part. We're like, you have to upload it somewhere. You kind of have to figure out RSS feeds, but not even really anymore. There's a lot of places that make it super easy. You just like drag and drop an MP3.
Yeah, that's our producer JC on the show. She handles all that.
Oh, so. Beautiful having a producer. Shout out to producers everywhere. Giving a nod to my producer. All right, man. Cool. All right. That's me. And so, yeah. What else? Oh, I saw this. You did a werewolf show with Lizzie Kaplan.
Oh, yeah. The Pits.
That's the Pits? Oh, yeah. Okay. So we already briefly touched on this a few episodes. We didn't mention that Lizzie Kaplan was involved.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there were a couple people on. The dad was Dylan Baker, who has done a ton of stuff. And yeah, Lizzie was there, and the kid, I forget his name, the actor, but he was the kid on the couch in How I Met Your Mother, who the whole story is being told to.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that was a great. And then weirdly, the mom on that show was this actress named, was it also Liz? Something Waymire, Lizzie Waymire, maybe. And she died under mysterious circumstances, an unsolved Hollywood death.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
So there's some
Kelly Waymire, maybe that's it. Maybe that's it.
Yep, Kelly with an IE.
There it is.
Waymire, Dylan Baker, Kelly Waymire, Lizzie Kaplan. The family with the worst luck in the world have zany adventures.
Yep.
I mean, elevator pitch right there. Just fumble for my wallet.
It was such a fun show to work on. Oh my God, it was so great. And the people in that room were Mike Scully, he ran the show, and
Oh yeah, that's
he's
a name
so
drop.
fun. Yeah, well, he's the best. And Seth was there, and these guys, Tom Gamble and Max Pross, who have written on like everything good that's ever been made. So
Yeah.
it was great.
Yeah, that's like one of those things where it didn't go, but due to it having been a thing a little bit, created this path for you for
Totally.
up
Yeah,
until now.
yeah, and also it was just a great. I mean, because to be in a room with guys like that, and you're all making each other laugh together, it gives you the confidence to say like, wow, I'm now okay, I'm kind of new at this, but I'm working with these guys who have made all the shows that I've been laughing at my whole life, and like I belong with them, like I'm working well with them.
Amazing.
And so then exactly what, like you said, obviously the Family Guy thing was an incredible stroke of good luck, but coming off something like The Pits and going into Family Guy, I have this awareness of like, okay, I can do this, like I can absolutely excel at this.
Get out of here, imposter syndrome. Not today, imposter syndrome.
Right. No, not today. Yeah, no.
I am Alec Sullivan.
Not in that aspect of myself.
Well, I think that's a great premise too for The Pit. So too bad it didn't go. I remember that Martin Short movie. It was the same kind of idea. Where he was
Pure Luck.
Pure Luck. Danny Glover.
I love that movie.
Got stung by the bees.
Yeah. There's a lot of great stuff in that movie. Martin Short makes me laugh.
Martin Short, King. Shout out, Canadian. And he's in that new show, which my wife started. And I'm like, you started that show without me? Come on. Yeah. Steve Martin Short. What do you think? What do you think? Come on.
We have my wife and I also plan to watch that one together. I'll give it a chance. I have high hopes. Martin Short, always funny. Steve Martin, legend. And actually, one of the writers on the show is a Family Guy writer who's very funny, named Kirker Butler.
Well, there you go. You better watch it so you can say, hey, good work.
Yeah.
Sweet. Yeah, murders in the building or something. In case the listeners are wondering what we're talking about.
Yeah, only murderers in the building.
Only murders in the building. Streaming now on Disney Plus. What's your favorite streaming service? What are you signed up for? All of them?
I have a lot of them. I guess I'm kind of partial to HBO Max.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I love Netflix too. I feel like
the
Netflix is sort of like disregarded unfairly because they've given us everything for so long, and they still kind of have more shit than anyone. But that said, for some reason, when I hit the tiles and I see that purple HBO Max, I often drift to that and just float around.
Compelled to see what the home box office folks have cooked up.
Yeah, they do good work over
They have
there.
good eyes. They know good projects to back.
They do. Always have.
So speaking of good projects, what is your recent thing that you're telling people to watch? What's your recommend currently?
Oh, well, again, my wife and I have been, and this is, we talk about Netflix, we saw that series Alone. This is not a new thing. It's like I guess you'd call it a reality show, like a reality nature show.
Okay, yeah. Like drops them off in the middle of nowhere or something?
Yep. And it's just captivating. It's great. I mean, it's, in line with sort of Survivor and Naked and Afraid, but it just feels better.
More well done, yeah.
Yeah. So I would recommend people check that out, particularly Canadians. I believe at least one of the seasons is filmed in your great nation. I'm sure.
Oh, great. How long would you last?
Oh, I would literally walk out the door with my backpack and like a cartoon.
Just turn around.
Right back in. Like remember how Grandpa Simpson walks into the whorehouse, takes his and then puts it back on. Like that's the opposite.
Yeah.
I wouldn't last a day.
No,
I don't think.
Not even with Bear Grylls by your side, dragging you every step of the way.
No, that might be worse.
Yeah, have you seen that one, the Bear Grylls, where he goes with a celebrity?
I haven't seen that. I've heard about it. I'm aware of who he is.
Yes.
But I have not seen. I've heard that's good though.
It's good, yeah. It depends. So it's like you see which celebrities can really tough it out or whatever, and each one has a general premise where they're dropped off somewhere. They got to hike through. There's a couple of challenges, a couple of spots where they can put in exciting cuts when you slip while climbing.
Yep,
and then
exactly. That's what
they
you
have to
need.
eat something gross.
Yeah,
cook it around a
good
campfire
double
while you have a
check.
heart-to-heart
Good
with Bear
check on all the
Grylls.
boxes.
Yeah, and then you eventually make it out with your redeeming story, and you get to ride in a helicopter.
Right. You used to be very afraid of eating something gross.
Exactly.
And
Oh,
you've overcome it.
can you imagine? You like to see who doesn't flinch at eating something gross.
Right.
Yeah, love those reality quote unquote shows. I
Yeah,
probably
I watch a
wouldn't
lot
make
of
it that
those,
long
too.
either. Just putting it out
What's
there.
that? Say
I
that
wouldn't.
again?
I wouldn't make it very long either.
No, well, but probably a little longer because you live in Canada. So
I
you're
might give it
probably-
a go, and then at the first thing, like some people I hear like they break their arm and they're like, all right, well I can still probably work through this. Like,
No, this is
Nah,
you'd have to tap out.
yeah, I
instantly.
would be out. Stub my toe. I'd be thinking
I'd be
about
out.
it. Be thinking about it. Call the producers. Was it? I'm a celebrity. Get me out of here. Still scrolling through that IMDb. The Playboy Morning Show. What the heck was going around in 2012? You were on the Playboy Morning Show. So Playboy has their channel, and obviously they have to program content for the channel that is not fully pornographic, I guess, or they're sort of like gently pornographic. So what was that? Did you go on and get interviewed?
Yeah, I think that was it. Like I think it was. They wrote an interview of me and play.
That's legit. Like that is real. That's a real
Yeah.
deal. That's like going
It
on
wasn't-
Letterman.
It wasn't the Playboy interview.
Sure,
the
sure.
One that's like the main thing. It was like a 1-page profile about like, oh, this guy is funny on Twitter, something like that.
Yeah.
And,
Which I should mention, yes, hilarious, very funny on Twitter.
God, Twitter's so dead though. Nobody needs to
Yeah,
come.
but we're
follow
talking
me there.
2012, the Sulk. We're talking
So
2012
this is
at
when
the
it was
Sulk.
thriving, when it was
Primo. You were one of the primo accounts. You're like one of my first follows, and where it was like,
Oh, that's nice to
it
hear.
was
Thank
like
you.
every single tweet was hilarious, like really funny. Where that is hard to do. Whereas like every single one was at least pretty funny, and there was like seemingly no misses. In 2012, you were like firing in all cylinders, and I remember that.
Yeah, thank you.
That
God,
was,
that's
like,
very nice of you to remember.
truly.
And yes, I think my brain was working better back then. But I think to get back to the Playboy thing,
Show.
I think they brought me in because they were nice enough to. I think I was promoting a book, a Twitter book, maybe even then.
Okay, yeah.
And which failed. And but I think they were nice enough to have me in there to promote that. I think that's what was going on.
Well, that's fine. So you were there as an author.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
Probably for their literary.
Yeah. So
moment.
it's like when they used to have, George Plimpton. That's who I was.
Similar level.
Yeah.
So they were asking you about your Twitter book, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's what was going on. It's funny. My memory of the whole event, I can remember like sitting there in the interview, and I think there was somebody else being interviewed at the same time.
Oh, that's
like
weird.
Maybe like Miss August or something.
Okay, yeah.
And so I don't really remember. Too
You weren't
much.
getting all the questions.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember that. That didn't make a deep impression on me that day.
That interview, sure.
It did, yeah.
But I was just wondering because that would be 2012. Hef was still around. Was it in some studio or was it like adjacent to the grotto? Where are you from?
No, it was in some studio in the middle of nowhere.
Right. Okay. They just have to
sort of
ferry
on
the
outskirts of
playmates.
LA.
They ferry the playmates in. Okay. I was just wondering about that. I was just seeing who Miss August 2012 was.
No, August was totally a guess.
I know,
had
but
no
I just think it would be funny. Oh, Beth Williams, shout out.
There she is.
We got it.
We got her.
I didn't click. I accidentally clicked images. So better close that.
Oh, okay. How does she look?
It looks great. Great tan.
It wasn't her.
Great tan. That wasn't her?
No, I don't think so. It's all right.
Well, let's start scrolling. Who's next? July. Okay, so you've written a book about tweets. You were in the Funny Tweets movie about the guy who got his writing job from tweets. Who was that? I remember his that was a big thing about how he got hired from Twitter. Was his handle was like the something?
I don't remember. Like, it's funny because I remember them asking me to be in that movie. Then one day there's like a guy with a camera and a guy doing sound, and they were in my office. And I just talked. They just asked me a few questions about Twitter, and I answered them.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was, they used clips of it in the movie. I don't know that I ever really knew or was invested in the story of the guy the movie was about, if that makes sense.
I think it was the Aardvark, wasn't it? Something.
Okay, that sounds vaguely familiar, but it wasn't like I was out there like, oh my God, I would die to be in a documentary about the Aardvark. Like they reached out and asked me if I would, and it's more like, oh sure,
yes.
I believe I'm important enough to be in a documentary about Twitter. So then they came and asked me some questions, and I don't think I ever saw.
You didn't see the final cut.
No.
Well, good to know. Good to know. We should add that as a comment on the IMDb
right, no,
note.
I don't think so.
Didn't really care. Didn't really know much about it.
Too supportive.
So you're also credited with the Family Guy video game. So what's your high score?
Oh my God! It's like I'm like Pinball Wizard in the Who song.
Yes.
With the Family Guy video game. No, of course I've never played that.
No, you don't hear no buzzers and bells.
No, I no, don't see no lights of flashing.
Nope, play by sense of smell.
Yeah, no, I think I just did a couple voices, maybe.
Yeah, probably original. You did voice credit on additional voices.
Yes,
voice.
I love that. Another one of my favorite characters.
And you do it so well. Additional voices. And so getting into the new stuff, a Fandemic. 50 fans celebrate 50 years of cinema. Is this the same kind of thing where they're like, hey, could you be in our documentary? And then
God, I have no memory. What year is that?
That's like 2021.
I don't know what that is.
Uh-oh.
That's a misprint. I mean, as far as I can think.
Yeah, maybe. All right.
What does it say it is?
Well, I clicked away from it. Now I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Well, that's okay. We can skip over that. So I guess we're rounding up to an hour here. Better start to put this into wind it up mode. All right. So what else? Oh, I was as I Googled today, I found that in September 2016, our tweets were published next to each other in the ES Independent in Carroll County, Arkansas.
Nice.
Right? That's pretty weird. Right next to each other. Yeah, we made it.
I made it.
And that's why we're so huge in Carroll County. Obviously, whenever when you blow through there, you get mobbed. I'm assuming it's like Beatles, Hard Day's Night or whatever.
That's right. And if the two of us were there together on the same day, we'd put a strain on law enforcement.
Oh, yeah, we'd have to. We'd have to have some sort of...
And now, what were the tweets? Do you have them?
Oh, yeah, the tweet was for you. It's, hey, Aaron's, leave some A's for the rest of us.
Oh, right. I actually remember that, yeah.
That's a good one. A lot of yours, I used to like read tweets on this podcast. This is the version 2.0 where we don't do that anymore. But after reading a lot of tweets, you realize that a lot of tweets don't work as something you could say. They're more of a reading format. So it's great for yours. A lot of them do work because they're just like well-written jokes.
Well, wait, what was
sentences.
Your tweet?
Mine is shout out to my self-aware friends. You know who you are.
Oh, that's great. That's a great tweet.
Well, thank you very much.
Wait, do I follow you on Twitter?
You do. That's why we're connected here. And I should say this: how you followed me is one of the weirder situations, and I wanted to mention it. It was someone like tagged you in a reply to one of my tweets, just randomly, like, "I think this Elk should see this," and then you liked it, and you liked a few of my tweets on my timeline, and you followed me. And I think I DM'd you like, wow, that's exciting for me. Like, I'm a huge fan. And you're like, yeah, great stuff. All the stuff on your page is good. And I'm like, whoa, wow. That's one of the like extreme highlights of Twitter.
Oh, good. Well, that's awesome. It's funny because I do vaguely, I'll have to go back. Like
I tried to find it and I couldn't find it. Otherwise, I would shout out the guy who like did that. Like I've been tagged and celebrities been tagged in my tweets and nothing has ever happened. That's the only time something has ever happened to that.
Even I'm sure you know this. I'm sure you follow a certain amount of people, and you really don't see that many people's tweets. It's like you can't. Like I can't keep up with like 1,000 people that I follow. So I just have to remind myself to go to certain people's pages,
right? Yeah,
so I can look at what they're doing. So now I'm reminding myself to go back to your page to look at it. Because if somebody tagged me in a comment on your tweets and then I looked at them and liked a bunch of them and then followed you, that must mean that I actually did like it, because then why would I add another follower?
Agree. I couldn't believe it. It was truly like mind blowing to me, because that obviously has never happened, and it was really strange. It was like, did that really happen? Like, who is this guy who tagged him? And seemingly it was like not really, like you weren't following that person. It wasn't really like they weren't even following me. It was just like, huh? Wow. Hey, and I don't know. I just wanted to,
it was meant to be.
It was meant to be, and I want to shout out that person, whoever they are. Thank you so much for ending up facilitating this great podcast episode with one of my favorites, Alec. Wow, so cool. So thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I say you're on a lot of podcasts, which is really great. It shows that you accept a lot of podcast invites, which I really appreciate as a podcaster, and I'm sure if you start inviting people on your podcast, you'll appreciate when people say yes and don't just ghost you or whatever.
I go where I'm invited. I'm that self-centered and vain, where if somebody says like, "Hey, I think you'd be great for my podcast," I'm like, "I agree."
Yeah, that's a trick. We're pulling these mental tricks on you, right?
It's a pretty simple one.
Brain hacks, like compliment some. I think I was talking to my cousin about that. Was our waiter had forgot to put our order in, and so it was like we were waiting, and then he's like, "Oh, thanks so much for your patience. I'm just gonna." Fix that. And it was like, because he thanked us for our patience, we couldn't be angry about being impatient.
Yeah, no, it's a very simple tactic.
It's a little trick.
But effective.
Love those brain hacks, and love at the Sulk. Everyone go check him out. Go listen to the podcast. A typical disgusting display.
Hey, that's good.
On wherever you get your podcasts. I guess that's the fun way to say that. And if there's nothing else, then what I do is I play the podcast theme as we say our goodbyes. So thank you very much, Alec. Very fun podcast. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Hey, thanks again for having me. I appreciate it.
And thanks for following me on Twitter. And everyone go follow at the Sulk. One of the best. Bye. Well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode with the Sulk. If you aren't following him on Twitter, I don't know, I can't help you. Be sure to check out The Sulk's podcast, A Typical Disgusting Display, wherever you got this show. I guess also watch Family Guy, though that feels unnecessary to plug. If you're a new listener, don't forget continue listening to the podcast after this episode. And if you like, you can check out all the past episodes available at www.stephenwskinner.com or find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or John Pod Van Dam. Remember, no ratings or reviews. If you are in a place where you feel comfortable following at FOTS Pod on Twitter, that's great. That's the show's account. I am on Twitter at SkinnerSteven, still tweeting, though it brings me little comfort. Special thanks to Ruby Coast for the music and Kyle Davidson for the team. And thank you so much for listening. I'm Steven Skinner. Have a great one.